I'm going to watch this strategy session. There might be some good information in it. I didn't watch the board meeting. The Trimet board meetings, occasionally you'll get some good information, but it's basically nothing but a high school pep rally. We already know what they're going to do. They publish the agenda, they publish the resolutions, and we already know everything they put in front of them they'll pass because the Trimet board of directors is a sock puppet board. We know that for sure. They don't ever vote down the general manager. In all the years I've been watching, 20 years now, they've never voted no on anything the general manager has put in front of them. And they just give Sam this glowing review. I couldn't watch it. I was literally making me sick having to listen to that. I did watch the general manager report, but that's useless. Nothing there. But this is not a board meeting. This is what's called a strategy session. And so the technocrats that actually run your system, which is Sue and his band of technocrats, what I call the Parasite Class. The Parasite Class consists of the people who control the money. The money is where the power comes from. It's all the money. We're all prisoners to the money. That's how they've enslaved the world, is by having money be our defining who we are. You know, if you don't have money and you're in the ditch, you're nobody. And you're useless to society, and half the population hates you. If you have money, you're somebody. You know, that's why we keep hearing about Gates and Musk, because they have money. It's all an illusion. It's a false illusion. But this is the truth of our society, whether we like it or not. And Trimet's power comes from their tax base. The taxes go to the Trimet technocrats, which is Sam and his little bunch of cronies there. They make the decisions about where that money's going to go. That's why your service is in collapse, and the capital projects and bureaucracy is still growing, because Sam, and let's not make this just on Sam, because what I've come to realize over the years is that there are directives that come from above, and it must be the federal government. It's the only thing I can think of that makes the decisions about which direction all these transit agencies will go, because you'll see similar things happening at all the I follow all the transit districts, and I follow some excellent accounts following other transit districts like Headway Matters and New Jersey Rude, Urban Market Urbanism, he's mostly housing, but he does a lot of good stuff with transit. Some of the people I follow talk about these things. And so what you see is these agencies all walking in lockstep, doing the same exact thing, which leads me to understand that these are not coming from Trimet. So they're passed down by the federal government to the transit agencies, and they say to them, we want you to do this. And they all implement these things, just like the COVID world order brought about the Build Back Better. And then we heard all these leaders of all these different countries talking up, using the exact same words, Build Back Better. So we knew that came from a central authority. It didn't come from them. So this is what we're going to see here. We're going to see, I only got bits and pieces of this, but the part that I did see was talking about the fear of it. Now, all the transit agencies are trying to make goats out of the poorest people in the country. The people evading fares are the poorest. And so they're trying to target the public's wrath, and they're very good at this. They're very good at creating the public to hate itself. They're trying to target people to hate poor people via the transit fare evasion. And we're going to see some of that here, but that was later in the meeting. Let's get started.
Big fat man. I mean, a really big fat man sat on my sandwich on the plane last night.
Here, there's some interesting background talk here. See if you can hear it.
And my daughter was like, "Are you gonna eat it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. It was in the bag, you know." But it was a very southern kind of delicacy in my mind. A minced pork sandwich with coleslaw and hot sauce. We drove like 4 miles for me to get this sandwich.
I would have eaten it.
So they don't realize the mic is on. I love the open mics. Those are the best, even on the transit scanner.
Sure did eat it. Hey, every bite of it.
That might be you.
I lived for a while Grits? Oh, tons of grits.
I love
It was
grits.
good. I love food.
Oh, you're not there.
When we were here last week,
I did.
we got to say hi.
Everything was good. Thank you.
We're in Atlanta.
See, they're all chumming around. They're all buddies. PDX scanner cracks me up, man.
She's in Decatur. Are you familiar at all with Atlanta? Decatur's really nice. Too pricey.
I don't know if that's still nice.
I think so. I think Decatur is in DeKalb.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Peterson.
Can you hear that? It's interesting.
They want to buy. I don't think they're going to afford Decatur. There's just killing.
I don't know if my software's picking up that chatter in the back, but it's funny.
His parents, his sister and brother-in-law. We did this years ago. Sandy, that's
Oh, they turned off the mic. They realized they were being. Okay, so we'll move it ahead. So we're up to 7 minutes and there's no 11 minutes, no presentation. 14 minutes, so they have 14 minutes of dead air.
Perspective
All right, here's where it starts.
here with the agency.
What's what's going on in the background there? All right, we'll start at the beginning.
For being here today and participating in.
Oh, look, they're on screen. It's a Big Brother. It's Big Brother on the screen. They're all in the room.
Not a strategy session, but like I said before, the ability to have people both virtually and in person participating. And as I have promised to Dr. Lewis and Director Edwards, I would do my best to make sure that they are totally engaged as if they were here, and if it looks like I'm failing in that regard, please bring that to my attention. But thank you all for being here. This is the culmination of a lot of months of planning, and it is a collaborative between the board and the staff.
And the staff runs the show. You just approve whatever they put in front of you. So let's get that clear. They don't really do anything. The board is just a puppet board. We all know that out here.
And it goes back to actually a year ago, but it formally goes back to last March when I was asked by the general manager to make contact with each board member to learn what it was that they would like the staff to provide in order to better understand the role FAIR plays in terms of the fiscal health of the agency.
Oh, see, so here we go. Right off. Okay, so they're going to start with this. This is phony. This is not a real thing. Fairs do not affect the actual operations, especially at Trimet. It's 14% of the operating budget, and it's like less than 7% of the whole budget. So fairs are not a thing, but the mainstream is trying to make them a thing. This is an attempt to demonize a segment of the population. And all these agencies are marching in lockstep around this. So that's how we know that it's coming from another source. It's not them. It's coming from above them. And the technocrats have told her that we're going to do this, and she's doing it.
And I can tell you, in the 5 years I've been on the board, I have become familiar with the agency through the development of this presentation you're going to see today in ways that I had no way of knowing before, because what it does is it commingles data and lets us see the relationship of funds within the organization and looks at a history of how the funding has developed over time. So let me begin by my prepared remarks. So, hopefully this session.
Look, what's his name? Edwards? What is it? I forgot his name. Whoever he is. He's in the back there fixing his tie.
Will provide us all with a deeper understanding from a historical perspective of how important passenger fares have been in contributing to the funding of the operations.
See, now this is a lie. Just understand that right off the bat. This is a lie. The operations is not funded by fares. So they're immediately going, and I know this because I've seen this at all the other transit agencies, the exact same script coming out.
Of Trimet. So that's really what we're going to learn today. In addition, we're also going to learn about how other transit agencies view passenger fares. Here's what we're not going to do. You're not going to have a specific proposal for a fare increase.
Whoa! It's coming, man. Okay, if you haven't figured it out by now, I feel sorry for all of you. These elites, which is her and the Trimet technocrats and all the rest of them who live in a bubble from the rest of us, are squeezing the life out of us. And it's happening on all kinds of fronts. They're using the Ukraine war as a cover for the gas prices and the inflation, and now they're using the fares as a cover for their poor operation. You can see that the elites are squeezing us on all levels now. On all levels, they're going forward with their extermination campaign and their war on the poor. And that's what this really is.
Should that be the direction the board wishes, that would be the subject of a future strategy session. Some of what you'll learn today is going to beg the question about the need for a fare increase. However, you're going to find that I'm not going to let the conversation drift in that direction. The board's role is strategy.
I mean, a fare increase at the time your service is in collapse. I don't believe anybody should have to pay for this service. It's so bad. You're in collapse. You have no service that's worth paying for. And here they are talking about fare evasion when their service, there's no penalty for when they fail you. But that's why I would never take public transportation anymore. I just would never go near it. It's just not, you're putting money into a system which is oppressing you. Don't do it. Don't support these failed institutions. I know if you're stuck using it because you have no choice, that's one thing. But the rest of us, I would never give money to the MBTA, for example, because I don't believe in them anymore. They've lost my trust. They're not worthy of even my $2.50.
And the staff's role is not strategy, it's set policy. And the staff's role is making actual recommendations within that policy. And you'll find that there's plenty of time today to ask questions, make comments, and engage in discussion. I look forward to our exchange, and I'm going to now turn it over to our General Manager, Sam Dessou, for his opening comments.
Good morning, President Simmons. I took a moment here just to stand back and kind of look at all of us, a great group of professionals that's leading this transit organization. So I just want to tell you.
See, now here you go. Here we have to listen to him. Okay, your transit system is a disaster. Okay, and you professionals have let it happen. You hide behind the labor shortage when it was always a lie. Just like the vaccines were a lie, and everything else is just like Russia's going to invade us, like the Red Scare shit. Everything is a lie that comes out of these people's mouths. These are a professional class of liars, just like Biden, just like Trump, just like all of them. This is the Parasite Class.
Oh, thank you for being here. I would like to introduce to you our newest member of our executive team, Mark Dorn. Down here on the left, he's the
Mark Dorn from Dorn.
the Executive Director of Engineering and Construction. So,
yeah, just what we need, engineering and construction. We don't have any drivers, but we have engineering and construction.
Mark, welcome to the team.
Welcome to the team of losers who pretend they're winners.
Today's discussion is a very important one for us to succeed we must have a financial stable environment, which can only be accomplished through sustainable budgeting and asset management. We must provide a sustainable budget to consistently deliver safe, reliable transit and uninterrupted maintenance. We must also advance our asset replacement plans. Our Blue Line is 34 years old, and we're continuing to have problems with it right now. Also, we must develop a strategy to expand additional revenue options. While our current financial situation is stable today, discussions that we're going to have today is going to give us direction on how we approach fares.
Yeah, see, now they're bankrupt morally. They're going to put this on the riders, and that's why they'll fail. Ultimately, they'll fail. The system is all these districts are circling the drain, and the only reason they exist at all is because they have dedicated tax revenues, or they'd have been out of business. I mean, Trimet got $160 million in COVID relief funds, and not one penny of it went into fares. I mean, into maintaining. It was supposed to go cover the fares. That's what the intent of that money was, to cover the fare loss. But that's not what they did. You were supposed to retain your drivers. You were supposed to retain your system. That's not what happened to Trimet. CTA did do that. Trimet did not.
We feel strongly that fares have an important role and that we should review fares.
See, he's going in the exact wrong direction. They're going in the exact wrong direction. They should be going in a fareless strategy, but instead they're going to enforce fares more, just like the rest of the neoliberal agencies are doing. That's why you shouldn't use Trimet anymore. Do not use Trimet. Let them suffocate themselves. They're going the wrong direction here.
As part of our annual budgeting process. And then in the end, we're going to be looking to each of you on where you stand about our fares and the possible fare increase. I want to just kind of move into just a little bit of history on how we got here. We've gone a number of years without a fare increase. The first increase happened because Trimet faced a deep financial crisis and ended up doing away with the free rail zone, cutting service. And
that was all a lie, all a lie. They took our benefits away. They cut the free rail zone. They got rid of the zone fare structure, and they gave themselves a raise when they did that. So you see, rules for thee, but not for me.
Increasing the adult fare by 10 cents. Around that time, the Trimet board, as a matter of policy, chose to make the honored citizen and youth fare one half of that of an adult fare. And also in 2014, lowered the youth fare from $1.65 to $1.25. In 2015, in accordance with that same policy, the agency increased the honored citizen fare from $1 to $1.25. I would note that the changes to our honored citizen and youth fares were made as the agency simplified its fare structure for eventually implementation of the hop fare system, payment system that was in place. At that time there, the agency backed away from further fare increases as the region implemented.
If you look at any of the literature from 2012, what you'll see is that Trimet was in the highest fares for consumers of all the transit districts in the country. Yes, they haven't increased it, but they're still high. Okay, they're still high than many systems.
A new fare system. As we
see, Sam has to read this off of his script there. He doesn't have the brains to present this material from his mind. He's not very smart, I'm sorry to say. He's very good at smiling, and he's a very good cheerleader, and he's very good at that, public relations. But as far as his intellectual capacity, it's not that great.
He faced that great recession that we went into in the latter part of 2010 through 2014. General Manager Neil McFarland instituted the last of our fare changes. And then my predecessor, Doug Kelsey, he chose not to raise fares, and then we had COVID that actually hit us. And then we find ourselves here today. So I'm going to give you just a quick look at what the current fare policy is. You may have note on your schedule that Nancy was going to provide that, but I'm going to provide it, and Nancy is just going to kind of gloss over that. Kim, go ahead and move to slide 2. So here you're seeing on slide 2 here is providing the authority, Trimet is provided the authority to collect fares on the ORS 267.320, and it enables our board by statute to impose by ordinance to be able to collect user fees from those who are served by or use the transit system.
Yeah, so the old system runs on taxes, but then they tax you again. See, this is a crime syndicate, folks. That's what it is. It is a crime syndicate. It exists by extracting wealth from the general public, and it doesn't even provide good service anymore. In the 1980s, early 90s, it was the best service around. Now it's barely functional.
The board also adopted a policy that no person over 65 should be charged no more than 50% of the regular fee for transportation.
How generous.
Can move to slide 3. One key finding I wanted to share with you in the findings of the Trimet Code 29, it says the ability to collect fares is essential to Trimet's budget.
And that's a lie. It's a lie. That's a lie.
And its ability to provide mass transportation services to the region, which the board adopted unanimously in 2018. Kim, go ahead and move to slide 4. The 2014 Strategic Financial Plan was adopted. Our staff considered 6 financial guidelines adopted by the board as part of the annual budgeting process, and they were fiscal policy, unrestricted fund balance, debt management, fare policy, capital asset management, and pension funding plans. We use these guidelines to report to you, to the board, on how well Trimet is doing at satisfying those 6 financial guidelines. Kim, go ahead and move to slide 5. In 2019, our strategic financial plan update states regarding fare policy, staff will develop a financial work plan that identifies the actions necessary to ensure alignment with the guidelines and report on the work plan's progress to the board. Kim, go ahead and move to slide 6. Slide 6 kind of gives you kind of an overview of our fare policy to be able to maintain a financial sustainable system that encourages and support riders.
You have none of those things. No customer experience is bad. I don't know what he's talking about equity. There's no equity, okay? There's no equity. Public engagement doesn't really exist. It's not there. They'll tell you it is because that's what they do. Just like Biden will get up on the stand and tell you there's no inflation and that the gas hikes are Putin's. You know, these people are professional liars, man.
And ensure broad access to transit services.
Yeah.
And there was 4 different areas that we focused on: financial, customer experience, equity, and public engagement. Go ahead and move to slide 7. And then finally, I just wanted to put our current fares in front of everyone so that you could see it. An adult fare is $250 for a 2.5-hour ride. Our honored citizens and youth are 1/2 of the adult fare, which the board adopted in policy. Both our honored citizen and our youth fares have qualifiers in order to purchase. And then our lift fare is $2.50 for a single ride. By the end of the day, we're really looking for you and your guidance around the very important question. Are we all in agreement we should raise fares? And I look forward to our discussion today and appreciate your help in determining our future. So I'll turn it back over to you, President.
Thank you, General Manager DeSue. We will now move directly into our main presentation today, which has to do with the strategic financial role that fares play in the financial health of Trimet.
It's a lie. It's a lie. Okay, they're basing everything on a lie here. Okay, that's the bottom line. It's only 14% of the budget. So you've already cut 20% of your service. Cut another 14% of your service, and now you have fare free transit. Okay, because that's the amount that your fares pay for.
And Nancy Young Oliver and her staff have put in a lot of hours and a lot of research in order to bring this presentation today. And I want to thank her for her efforts and welcome her as our Executive Director of Finance Administration. And she has a full review for us. So, Nancy.
I can't find any.
And by the way, we're not scheduled to have a break this morning. We're anticipating this will be about a 90-minute presentation. If by chance our dialogue and our conversation, because there's a lot of room for question and interaction, should take longer, I will call a break. And if anyone needs one, and feel free to leave and come back. But we're going to try to get through this by noon.
Great, thank you, President Simmons and members of the board. I have a few slides here that we're going to talk about. It's just to set some foundation, and then we're going to talk about some fair considerations in the impact on our operations. Advance. I thought it would be important to take a moment to ensure that we all have the same understanding of the type of entity that Trimet is, because oftentimes I hear Trimet referred to as a not-for-profit, when in fact we're actually a governmental entity. There are two key criteria that I want to call out to you. The first one is that the majority of our governing body is appointed by the governor, and that's all of you sitting here today. And the second component is that you are presumed to be a government if we have the ability to issue federally tax-exempt debt. That's our bond issuances. And as you know, our ability to issue that tax-exempt debt is key to our operations and building our infrastructure. Trimet is a governmental entity, but then we have to look at, so what type of governmental entity is Trimet? And as there's various types of governments, we have to look to the professional standards that define the type of reporting entity that Trimet is. Specifically, GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, requires that governments that charge a fee to external users by policy or legal requirements to report as what's called a proprietary enterprise fund. And as described in ORS 267.200, Trimet has the power to fix and collect charges for the use of the transit system and other district facilities. Advance. I also wanted to bring us in on our strategic financial plan in a little bit more detail, specifically regarding the fare policy. The strategic financial plan was adopted by the board in 2019. In the area of financial, in striving for a sustainable balance of growth in ridership and passenger revenue, I want to call out two criteria that actually at this time are not being met. First is that the pricing strategy keep pace with the cost of service. We have some information to share with you today that will clearly demonstrate that we have not kept pace. And second is that we're leveraging our electronic fare collection to reduce the costs and improve our fare recovery. And while we are capitalizing on our HOP system, we have not yet improved our fare recovery. And so we will work through those today. Our SPF also includes the evaluation of the customer experience, balancing the design of fares, customer impact, and fare enforcement. Advance. Looking at transit equity, Trimet has reduced ridership barriers for low-income and transit-dependent riders. And when we look at public engagement, we continue to engage and inform our communities when making decisions. Advance. When we look at our fare box recovery ratio, it's a really simple formula. It's passenger fares divided by operating costs equals our fare recovery ratio. When we look at our operating costs, it is the total cost that it takes to run our service day to day. Easily stated, that is the total cost of our transportation division and our maintenance division costs. That includes things like our operators, the mechanics, the fuel, station agents, dispatchers, facilities management, and the other items that you see there. The operating costs, again, are the total costs that it takes to run Trimet service. Advance. Now, these next slides, we're going to dive into our fare considerations. And so on each slide, what I'd like to do is explain the information that you're seeing, and then I'd like to go ahead and pause and allow you all to have some discussion about the information that you're seeing. So if you have a question, feel free to just let Linda know, and that goes to both as well to Trimet staff, and then make sure your button's on, because I think I went around and turned some of them off. So this first slide looks at total resources compared to the system and operating costs. The purple line on the top is our total system costs. So on the previous, we talked about operating costs. To get to system costs, you have to add in all of the other costs. So the cost for legal, cost for finance, HR, safety and security, engineering.
Yeah, so this is the problem here. They've built up this giant bureaucracy around all this. And so now you have all these costs adding up. And this is a problem. You know, they've grown their bureaucracy. Let me just read you some of the fares around the country. I can't get a 2022 list, but as of 2018, New York City was $275. Dallas, Texas was $175. Washington Metro, $2 to $6, depending on distance. BART, $2 to $16.65, depending on distance. Boston, $225 to $275. Miami, $225. Los Angeles, $1.75. Metro Rail of Houston, $125. Philadelphia, $250. Phoenix, $2. Chicago, $2.25. And those systems are huge compared to Trimet, and they charge less. So don't ever think that they're charging a lot for you to use their system. The only thing that's a good deal over here is the day pass.
Construction, public affairs, right? That takes us up to total system cost as demonstrated in the purple line. That blue line represents our operating costs. The bars represent our revenue sources. On the bottom is our passenger fares. So that's in that neon green color. In addition, we have operating grants, and then we have our lift and other operating revenues. On top of that, we have our employer payroll taxes. You can see from fiscal year 2010 through fiscal year 2018, we were doing okay with keeping pace with the costs going up and the total revenue sources that we had. However, our passenger fares had started to decline in 2015. In 2009,
and it's funny how everything was great until they introduced light rail. Of course, I'm never going to bring this up, but light rail really destroyed the Trimet. I hate to tell you that. A lot of us geeks know this already. That was the end of the good transit system, was when they decided to make development their number one mission over providing actual transportation.
19, that is the first year that our total resources did not keep pace with the system expenses, which is similar timing to when staff had discussions about a possible future shortfall. Then we had COVID-19 hit, and as you can see, we had a big drop in our passenger revenues.
It's going to take a long time to go through.
At the same time, we were fortunate enough that the stimulus funding, we started to receive the stimulus funding. At the time that COVID hit, passenger fares made up over $110 million of our total resources. And as a result of COVID, it dropped to less than half of that amount. So we were around 50 million. And
yeah, but you got bailed out by the federal government.
Even less than that. We had budgeted for around 50 million. Came in, actuals were less than that, as demonstrated on the slide. So having that stimulus funding has allowed us to continue our operation.
But they didn't operate the system. The money from the stimulus was supposed to keep the systems running at status quo. They did not do that at all, ever. It never went back to status quo. It just got worse and worse and worse. And now they've made official cuts. And now they're going to redo their whole system. They're going to build it back better, folks.
And while we have taken a slight decrease in our service by 10%, at one point around 20%, we have added some of that back. But you can see clearly that if we had not had that stimulus funding, we would have been taking some pretty serious cuts.
Yeah, but not the bureaucracy, not the capital projects. Make this clear, people. The only thing that ever gets cut is the actual riders. Nothing else gets cut here. They're not going to tell you that. I'm telling you the truth. They're lying.
I'd like to go ahead and pause here and see if there's any questions.
Director Bauman.
Thank you. I want to clarify, on slide 6, the payroll taxes, that you mentioned employer side, but that also includes the employee side payroll tax, that House Bill 2017
No.
payroll tax.
So
No, payroll tax is not HB 2017. These board members don't even know how the agency is funded. Okay, red, payroll tax. That's the dedicated Trimet tax that employers pay in the Metro District, and that makes up the biggest part of their operating budget. The blue, total operations cost. Okay, so all of this above the blue is not relevant because it's all pork, basically. Okay, the green and the blue total operations costs are in the blue. Oh, wait a minute. They're in the blue line. Okay, they're in this blue line, not the blue. The blue shaded is operating grants. The passenger fares are this little tiny piece of green down here, down here, down here, down here, down here. Trimet's fare box recovery was never particularly strong. One of the least fare box recovery systems in the country.
the employee payroll tax, the STIP funding from House Bill 2017, is a state resource, so that would go in the orange bucket. So when you look at the employer payroll taxes and federal funding, all in that category.
That's not the payroll tax. They don't even know that. Okay, how can you be the president of the board and not know that? Or was that Bauman that asked that? And she should know. She's been on the board a long time.
Director Way?
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. I just have a question. So can you explain operating grants again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What that mean?
Yeah, so we can receive grants that are specifically towards the operations of the organization versus capital grants, which is for the acquisition or construction of a major capital asset.
Okay. Where are those grants coming from?
Yes.
It can come from state and local.
Yeah, but where? She asked you where. Like what? State and local and federal, don't forget.
Okay. And then you said, so currently the $110 million is the amount pre-pandemic that we were at when we were collecting fares. And right now it's 50 million.
A little less than that, but yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Are there other questions, staff? Oh, there you are. Okay, Director Gonzalez.
Thank you. And I'll point out we don't see Director Lewis or Director Edwards. Not sure if they're in the queue.
Okay, you'll be next, Director Edwards.
Thank you. Thank you, President Simmons. The difference between the purple line, the total system cost,
Yes, right here.
and the total operations cost,
Right here.
if I understand correctly, it does factor in those CapEx one-time projects?
For capital? Okay, so capital is considered separate from this. Okay. So federal funding, when we receive that, it is for capital. It will not go towards operations. Lori and I had a discussion about that fact right
Yeah, the federal funds go to the pork barrel. The federal funds are the, they give the money and it filters down to the elites via capital projects. They've really refined their scam system. You know, yeah, the feds don't give you anything as a person. Okay, they don't give us anything. They don't even want to give us. They're trying to get rid of our own Social Security that we even paid for.
before the meeting started. So when we receive a federal grant, it is only for the capital acquisition or construction.
And all capital projects are, for money that the elites steal. Okay, I'm not saying all capital projects are bad, but most of them are. Okay, most of them are unnecessary.
And so at this time, things like the Orange Line expansion is not represented in the purple line.
What
Correct.
Orange Line expansion? What are you talking about? Are you talking about the fucking bridge?
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That was one of the first clarifications I wanted. If I'm understanding this correctly, then it looks like, with CapEx projects excluded, from 2010 to 22, it looks like our total operations costs changed by increasing about 25%. And in the same time period, the total system cost experienced an increase, looks like, of close to 100%. Just wanted to see if I'm interpreting this correctly.
Well, look at this for a minute. Look at how in 2022, they had the most payroll taxes in the history of Trimet. Look at this. This goes all the way back to 2010. 2022, they've collected the most amount of payroll tax ever, which is interesting.
So the operating costs from 2010 through 2022, we had a slight increase. The overall
Slight increase. It went from 400 million to 800 million. That's a slight increase to you. That's double. And you didn't increase any service. All right. Let me see. Let me make sure we're looking at this right here. No, the operations cost. Okay, we're looking at the Trimet budget doubled. I don't understand what this is because it says here the total operations cost is the blue line, and they say this purple line is the total system cost, but that's not the budget. The Trimet budget is 1.9 billion. Okay, so that we don't see that on this chart. So they're only talking about operations here. So I don't understand why they break this down. Total operations cost, but then this is operations. Yeah, there's something wrong here. I can't. It's not. This blue line shouldn't be here really because this purple line is what it cost. Is what she just said is total system cost.
System changed more than the operating costs.
Well, we know it didn't increase. The cost didn't increase because of service because they have not increased any service. And, they had their little PR campaign. We're going to have 24-hour service. And what was 24-hour service? It was like 4 buses all night. It was like nothing.
Do you have any insight as to what could be driving that sort of distancing? They're growing at different rates. I'm just wondering if there's anything that you can help point to about that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So as we engage in more outreach within our organization, so for example, public affairs, J.C. Vanetta is responsible for. We do more public outreach. We do more engagement. That's all in public affairs.
Yeah, that's just garbage. That whole public affairs office should be abolished. Like the 37 and 36 bus routes. Abolish it. Get rid of some of the bureaucracy. They're never going to do that. They're never going to do that.
And that falls into that system cost, not a direct operating cost of putting service on the street. So that's one example there.
And you could get rid of
as
that.
we implement those types of programs, to bring folks in, to recruit them, provide different programs.
Bullshit.
In addition, what you're also seeing on the operating costs is just, changes in our service levels. Okay, so that is also a driving factor.
Yeah, and your service levels are lower, but the operations cost hasn't gone down. So this doesn't make sense. There's something wrong here.
The planning, the community engagement, all of that gets built into that piece.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Director Edwards?
Oh, okay. So when you receive an operating grant, that's not a guarantee that you get every year. Those are competitively bid, so we have to apply for them and we have to win the award. So there'll be fluctuations in our operating grants year over year. It depends on how much funding is available in any given year from the providers. And, in some years we're more successful than in other years.
Yeah, great. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
Director Lewis, I can't see you. If you have a question, now would be a good time. Thank you, Director Lewis.
Thank you, Director.
So I think we'll proceed.
All right,
no, just
stop.
1 second. It's hard to see it. And plus, for me, I'm not used to going this way. I'm used to looking that way. So I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Is there a reason why we're and this again could be a very fundamental question, but is there a reason why we are connecting our passenger fare revenue to our operating costs?
Yeah, so our passenger fares, the value of our passenger fares, we first attribute to our operating costs because the fare was received when we were providing that service to the customer. So we first apply our passenger fares, then our operating grants, then our lift and other operating revenue, and then we apply the employer payroll taxes on top of that.
So that's the way that it's always been when this was set up? I guess I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. She's trying to understand what's going on here. They don't know. Okay, I know more than them. Okay, they don't know. They have no. They just come in once a month, and this is all they do with it. They don't follow any of this like the handful of us do.
Understand how did we get to that point of connecting fares to operating?
It's actually an industry standard for all transit agencies.
Is it?
Yeah. For example, if I can just expand on this. So when we receive STIP funding and we seek reimbursement of the STIP dollars, the requirement is you first reduce your reimbursement by the amount of fares you've collected. It's first applied, and then you get reimbursement.
What?
Okay, and then President Simmons, you said it's an industry practice, and I know we'll hear just from other states, cities that have also explored the subsidized fare.
Yeah, the fare box ratio is an industry standard, and it's in all transit agencies in the United States. It's the portion of operating expenses that have been received from.
Yeah, she's right. It's called fare box recovery, and they assign a percentage to it. For example, New York City, it's like 50%. 50% of their operating costs come from fares. Like 25% of Boston, 14% of Trimet.
Passenger fares, and later today you will see where we have been in the past and where other transit agencies their fare box ratio is.
Okay. I have other questions, but I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. Advance.
All right, we're going to stop. That's enough for one day. I've gone too far as it is. All right, it's going to take a while to go through this. But I'm a little bit shocked that, they're making fares into something it's not. But I'm not shocked because we're seeing this around the country. So what this is austerity. We're looking at austerity once again. They squeeze the serfs. Meanwhile, they're making fortunes while they're doing all that. So this is your This is the society we live in, man. Let me play my standard theme song.
America's 60 families and public plunder and the founding finaglers, and you get into all this, you discover that the purpose of government has been crime since the founding of the Second Republic. I mean, there has been no exception. It's been one unending, basic hog wall, and the biggest hogs always, get the most. And if that's the kind of society you want, then you ought to love the one you have. America's 60
And that's
families.
it right there. And all this is government. This is just government here. They're no different from any other government entity. The purpose is crime. How much can we extract from the citizens? And that's what we're seeing here. They're not here for you. That's what I'm trying to say. They take from you and they give back as little as possible, over and out.